You decide for yourself what you think is the right thing to do and the right thing to think. Now let's get on with looking at this interesting story in the Washington Post. Let's accept that it's become a saga, that there's been numerous videos made about it. There's been a lot of ink spent, a lot of digital screen time spent on discussing, analysing and trying to understand this issue. Let's firstly lay the story out, and then I'll give you my opinion on what could be influencing the direction of travel vis-a-vis CNN's adamant stance. On September the 1st, CNN host Erin Burnett said, controversial podcast host Joe Rogan, they've already given him the adjective controversial. What does that mean? Controversial as opposed to popular, successful, well-regarded, all different things that you could say. This is the beginning of the framing. This is an important story, I would say, not in particular because of the subjects, but because of what is revealed about the manner, nature and inclination of storytelling techniques. And I'm trying to avoid the word propaganda. Joe Rogan, she continues, has railed against vaccine requirements, says he has COVID and took a drug intended for livestock. She articulated similar descriptions 2 additional times before interviewing a doctor and noting that the drug is prescribed for people as well. The same day, CNN host Anderson Cooper said one of those drugs he mentioned, ivermectin, is something more often used to deworm horses. As many of you have said in the comments, it's like if Joe Rogan ate oatmeal, is Joe Rogan eating horse food? It's about framing. It's not, as CNN seem to be saying in their own statement, it's not about whether or not medicines can have various applications. It's about the framing of those applications. If you particularly and specifically emphasize that it's a veterinary medicine, what you're saying is it's not for humans, and that's a critical and pejorative perspective. Also that day, Don Lemon said, controversial podcast host Joe Rogan tested positive for COVID and is taking several medications, including a drug meant for deworming livestock. So it's, again, the ongoing association of controversial and Joe Rogan, and the ongoing association between the drug in question and livestock. That's 2 sort of amalgams. On the 3rd of September, CNN political commentator Bakari Seller said, I think the unfortunate part about all this is you have individuals like Joe Rogan, for example, who don't want to take an experimental vaccine but will take horse dewormer. And on the September the 4th, anchor Jim Acosta played Rogan's disclosure video and said, in case you missed it, Joe Rogan said ivermectin. Yes, that's the deworming medicine made to kill parasites in farm animals and weirdly is being promoted by right-wing media figures and even some politicians as a COVID treatment. It seems like the longer the story ran, the more pejorative the language becomes. There's a reason for reciting these transcripts. They turn up a consistent formulation from multiple CNN voices that surely wasn't a sober recitation of the facts. By highlighting that ivermectin is a horse dewormer and downplaying that ivermectin has important uses for people, CNN facilitates a certain assumption among its viewers. After hearing Rogan's concerns about how CNN cast the issue, Gupta said they shouldn't have said that. Given that a prominent CNN personality agreed with a strong critique of his own colleagues, we placed the matter before the network's PR department. They issued this statement. The statement, I think, is really fascinating because this is a news network that has a great deal of communicative bandwidth, a great deal of power and reach. And the choice they made at this point, where they didn't use it as an opportunity to be honest, to diffuse the situation. Remember as well, by the way, that the whole point of a society is for us to look after one another, create successful systems. If you're in a position of significant power, like a news broadcaster, then surely the response to a pandemic ought to be, how do we get to resolving this situation as quickly and effectively as possible? Now, in order to have that perspective, there can be nothing else at play. There can be no financial obligations that you have as an institution, no agenda or requirement for viewers or listeners or readers, no affiliation with other groups, organizations, no funding discrepancies. So think about what's required in order to achieve what surely we are aiming for, a fair, decent society where all of us can actualize, become who we really are. And when there are big social problems, we have the power to address them socially. When there are individual problems, we have the collective intelligence to analyze it critically. What we're creating here is a kind of ubiquitous hysteria, a totalitarian idiocy. That's what's created when institutions with power behave irresponsibly, or if not irresponsibly, in accordance with principles that are not transparent or easily viewed and critiqued. Here's the statement from CNN. The heart of this debate has been purposely confused and ultimately lost. It's never been about livestock versus human dosage of ivermectin, right? That already doesn't sound that honest, does it? Because of the amount of times that they talked about livestock. They didn't at any point go, even though this drug is used for animals, it's also used for humans, so it's not important whether it's livestock versus... That was what they were really amplifying. So it's disingenuous. They're opening straight off the bat, lying. The issue is that a powerful voice in media, right now we're getting somewhere, powerful voice in media. CNN do not like no one in media likes Joe Rogan having the amount of power that he has, that he doesn't have to be beholden to the kind of same commercial interests, that he can't be controlled, curtailed, limited, diluted in the traditional manner. Why do you think that for 50, 60 years, as long as there's been the kind of media that we've had, it's been controlled in particular ways? Regulation from government, funding from private interests. These are the two pincers that close down, that squeeze information into manageable little tubes of data that serve the interest of the powerful. We always maintain that little equation in mind. How does this serve the powerful? How does this serve the powerful? If someone says something that potentially is dangerous or disruptive to the intentions of the powerful, that person will be censored. If they can't be censored, they'll be criticised, slammed, slurred, smeared.